Welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, July 5th, 2021, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We have been looking at the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Fantasy Adventure Module Dungeon Masters Adventure Log from 1980. This is part 4, first edition, obviously, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And we've been taking our time with this one. It's only 10 pages long, so the fact that we have a fourth part tells you we've been discussing a lot of oddball stuff on the side in conjunction with this and doing some deeper dives and analysis of bits and pieces of it. It's chock full of stuff. The forms alone purport to be very useful. I'll find out tomorrow. My first session of my new campaign. We had a session 0 a couple of weeks ago. People created characters, and I have 5 players. We're starting off in a small village, first level characters. We'll see how that goes. Last time I started up a fresh campaign, we had, well, it was a larger group. This is only 5. We had starting with 10. We went down to 9, down to 8, back up to 9 over the course of the campaign. And those first couple of levels, we had multiple deaths. People feeling perhaps they were Teflon, a little safer than they probably truly were. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow. But they're starting off in a village. How dangerous could it be? We will see. We will see. This is the last page of this. Well, there's another page after this on the supplement where it shows a filled out example of each of the 2 forms, and then there's the back cover of this. But this is the final page of tables. I'm going to switch over to the other screen because I think it's a little easier to see. Maybe not. Maybe just for me. Well, let's dive in. Becoming Lost. As I've shown you in the previous episodes in this little series, there are many extra tables in here that are taken mostly from the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, which are very useful and aren't usually on a store-bought Dungeon Master screen. And some of these are a bit esoteric, admittedly, but they can be very useful, and they're worth printing out and having handy. Becoming Lost. Any party not guided by a creature knowledgeable of the countryside, Gollum, through which the party is moving, or is not following a well-defined course, river, road, or the like, trail, path, stream, is not using a well-drawn and correct map, might become lost. This is determined prior to the commencement of the day's movement. Determination is based on the terrain. Terrain types: plain, scrub, forest, rough, desert, hills, mountains, marsh. Chance of becoming lost, respectively, 1 in 10, 3 in 10 for scrub, 7 in 10 for forest, perhaps the toughest of it because its visibility is so limited. Rough, 3 in 10. Desert, 4 in 10. Hills, 2 in 10. Mountains, 5 in 10. And marsh, another tough one, 6 in 10. Direction, 60% left or right. This is the direction you might wind up Well, let's read the bottom of this before we dig into this last column, so it's a lot more apparent. To find the direction of movement if a party is lost, roll a d6. 1 to 3 indicating left, 4 to 6 indicating right. Each hex face is 60%, and let's blow this up so we can see this directional chart. Each hex face is 60%. If a loss of direction is 120% is possible, roll a second d6, 1 and 3 indicating a 60% direction loss, 4 to 6 indicating 120%. In any direction, roll a single d6 with results being read off clockwise, considering the intended direction of travel is 12 o'clock and giving 2 chances for complete loss and movement in the exact opposite direction. Thus, 1 equals right ahead, 2 equals right behind, 3, 4 directly behind, 5 is left behind, and 6 left ahead. I.e., there is no chance the party ever accidentally moving in the desired direction when the die indicates the condition of being lost exists. Otherwise, you're not lost. Direction of lost movement is illustrated below. So there's your chance there. And so, in these various types of terrain, 60% left or right on plains, 60% left, right, or any in the forest, 60% left or right, 60% left or right in rough, desert, and hills, 120% left or right, any in a marsh. So marsh and forest are the ones in which you can become so lost that you actually get turned around. Marsh can have a lot of coverage above, but one also has to consider the weather. If it's a fairly clear marsh where the sky is not obscured and there is no cloud cover, then it's quite possible that marsh is not that easy to get lost in. Forest, however, with a canopy, obviously can be very difficult, and you can become completely, hopelessly lost, turned around in opposite directions. A lot of people will remember from The Hobbit where Bilbo Baggins actually climbs up to the tops of the trees to get a look out, see the sun, get their bearings. Well, that can be accomplished also in games, and well, it's up to the players to try to figure out if that's what they want to do. We're going to move on. Chance of encounters. Population density, relatively dense, moderate to sparse or patrolled, uninhabited/wilderness. Base chance of encounter, 1 in 20 in a relatively dense area. And these are monster encounters, right? Obviously, if it's relatively dense, you're running into people all the time, but you're not running into encounters that are dangerous as much, 1 in 20, right? Or monster creature encounters, 1 in 12, moderate to sparse or patrolled. Things tend to stay away from areas like that. Uninhabited wilderness, 1 in 10. Frequency of encounter chance, time checks. Check for encounters morning, noon, evening, night, or midnight and pre-dawn. So you've kind of got the 6 areas of the clock covered. Plains, morning and evening and midnight. Scrub, morning and evening and night, as well as pre-dawn. Hunters, creatures hunting and whatnot. Forest. We're hearing a little background noise. There's a little construction going on downstairs today. Sorry about that if that's bothering anybody. Forest, morning, noon, evening, night, midnight, pre-dawn happens all the time. desert, morning and night, and pre-dawn when things are moving about before the heat of the day comes on. Hills, noon, night, pre-dawn. Mountains, morning, night. Marsh, any time at all encounters can happen. Much like in forest, once again, check for encounters where the X's are at those times. Do not check unless a party numbers over 100 creatures on these ones where there is a line drawn, an M dash, or is that an N dash, I guess? Because unless there's a large group moving through which would attract encounters, it's unlikely to happen. So that's kind of the basis for the encounters. They have this nice little encounter distance reminder. If either party is surprised, the encounter distance is determined by subtracting the value of surprise as determined by the die, which indicated that the condition existed. From normal encounter distance is 60 to 240 feet, 6d4. Thus, on a surprise roll of 1, for example, encounter distance is 50 to 230. That is 64 minus 1. On a 2, the distance is 40 to 220, etc. Remember, for most games, count these not as these inches marks, not as tens of feet, but tens of yards. I tend not to do that. I find it awkward during gameplay to get into explaining that each and every time and going over which works and which doesn't, especially with ranges. And encounter distances are another good example. That's just me. If you like going back and forth and have no trouble doing it, by all means, best of luck to you. In addition to shortening the encounter distance, surprise also allows the surprising party to have that number of segments as shown on the die as the surprise factor as free and unanswered activity to move, attack, flee, etc. See surprise. In addition to the modification for surprise, terrain will also modify encounter distance as follows. Scrub -1 per die on all 3s and 4s. It tightens it up, right? It bends the curve or the bell to the shorter side. Forest, -1 per die on all numbers. 0s are possible. So that really tightens it up. Marsh, -1 per die on 2s, 3s, and 4s. Plain, desert, hills, and mountains do not alter encounter distance variables unless one of the 3 modifying types of terrain also exist. So, if it's forests on the mountains, you might add that in. If final encounter distance is 10 feet or less, then a confrontation will usually take place. I've played with people where encounter distance is never a thing. If you have an encounter, somehow it's always right in your face, which can be exciting sometimes. All the time, it becomes fairly ridiculous, really. And you know, things that could be exciting sometimes, when they happen all the time, lose their value. So be careful of that. Don't overuse surprise attacks, things lunging out from the middle of, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere. You're out on plains. How does something sneak up and surprise you every single time? Nighttime, okay, it can happen. But, you know, with guards and people keeping watch, shouldn't happen all the time. Movement afloat, oared or sculled in miles per day. Vessel type, we got a whole bunch of them here. This is on lakes, a marsh, a river, and notice See page 58 for of the DMG for effects of current and wind on movement, on the sea, and on a stream. So, raft, small boat, those are the only two that are going to be on streams, and you're not going to do miles per day out on the sea on a raft, a small boat, or barge. Certainly not a barge. A barge is a poled conveyance where you push off on the bottom. I suppose if you're along the shore, you might do that, but the waves are going to disrupt a barge so badly. Flat bottom like these, hit by the waves constantly, just aren't going to work. You can survive on a raft, but you're not going to be making miles per day. So, raft, small boat, barge, small galley, large galley, small merchant ship, large merchant ship, and a warship. Galleys tend to be fighting vessels. They're conveyances for groups, troops, whatnot. They can have some cargo on them. But merchant ships are really the cargo movers. So, on a lake, 15 miles per day for a raft, 30 for a small boat, 20 for a barge, and these are oared or sculled, that is, moved in the way of a barge or whatever, moved along. Barges 20, small galley 40, 30 for a large galley. Merchant small is 10, 10 for a large merchant. A lot of this kind of assumes some levels of cargo. Misty and Rick, hey, goof morning indeed. Welcome. Appreciate you stopping by. Marshes, only the smaller conveyances can possibly move on them, and a small boat is best. Rivers, all of them can, and there's a great variety of movement rates. Small galleys tend to be the fastest of anything on most types of water. Small streams, only the rafts and small boats will work on the small stream. Movement afloat, sailed in miles a day, miles per day. And again, sailing is going to be faster than oars. Small boats can be very fast. So again, can small galleys. Once again, the size dictates that only rafts and small boats can be on streams. Add on barges if you're on rivers, or rather on marshes. Seas, none of those three can wind up going out on them. They're just too rough. And rivers, you've got all kinds of vehicles out on rivers, depending on the size of the river. But, once you get down to streams, smaller things like streams limits the boats. Lakes, anything could be out on the lake. They don't have currents, generally speaking, except near where streams or rivers rather enter or leave a lake. So a lot of places in the lake are going to be easy enough to navigate with any type of vessel. Movement afoot in miles per day. This is pretty handy if you're running any kind of an outdoor campaign. So you've got, dependent upon your burden, whether it's light, average, or heavy. So if you're keeping track of encumbrance, or even just generally deciding that people are fairly lightly encumbered without keeping it down to the gold piece in weight. Normal terrain is rugged. Terrain is very rugged. If you're light, 30 movement, miles per day, 20 or 10 in rugged or very rugged. Average 20, 10, and 5. Heavily encumbered 10, 5, and only 2 in very rugged. So if you're tromping around with plate mail and a big old heavy pack and a chest on your back in very rugged terrain, you're not going very far. Mounts, miles per day, light, medium, heavy. Draft horses, those that are designed for taking heavy loads for long periods. If you've got a cart, road, track, or open terrain only, carts are not very good. They can go across plains, open terrain like that. So too wagons. But once you get into very rugged terrain, forget about it. 25 or 15 for a cart in normal or rugged, 25 or 10 in rugged terrain for a wagon. But just generally speaking, draft animals 30, 15, 5, 30, 15, 5 for heavy mounts like a heavy warhorse or some fantasy equivalent. Medium 40, 20, and 5. 60, 25, and 5 for a light mount in normal, rugged, and very rugged terrain. Evading pursuit outdoors. Base chance of evading pursuit outdoors is 80%. It's actually fairly easy to try to evade things out of doors. It's quite possible things don't see you in the first place. Once they've seen you, it doesn't mean it's going to be impossible to evade them. It depends largely on the terrain and some other factors, such as movement speed adjustment. The pursued is faster. So let's say, and this table means to work both ways. This is not just you trying to evade something. It's something trying to evade you possibly too. But when the pursued is faster, add 10%. Both parties have equal speed, 0. Pursuer is faster, minus 20. Only a 60% chance of evading if what is pursuing it is faster. Terrain adjustment, plains, desert, open water, minus 50%. Something can see you. Hard to hide. Scrub, rough, hills, marsh, plus 10% onto that 80. Forest or mountains, plus 30% onto that 80. Size of parties involved. Pursued party totals fewer than 6 creatures. Well, that's going to work out for my group of 5 players later. Plus 10%. Pursued party totals 6 to 11, 0, 5 to 20, 12 to 50 creatures is plus 20%, or sorry, minus 20% off that 80. And these are all, you add all of these in, right? You can take pluses or minuses from multiple categories here. Pursued totals over 50 creatures. Pursuing party totals fewer than 12, minus 12%. 12 to 24, 0, 24 or more, or rather over 24, add 10%. Available light adjustment. Daytime, nighttime. Middle of the day, light equal to full daylight. Is it cloudy? Is it obscuring the views? Twilight, bright moonlight. This is minus 30, minus 10, and 0. Starlight, plus 20%, equal to dark night, plus 50%. So you could have a huge storm in the middle of a day. Now, they don't account for weather in here, but I could see if you wanted to add in or take off some percentage because of inclement weather. But don't forget, it affects both the pursued and the pursuer. In some cases, that won't favor either, and therefore is just a wash. Anyway, how do we do there? I think we've gotten through the entire booklet now. So I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to pop that off and just say, hey, thank you very much for popping in if you did today. Appreciate it. Always say thanks to everybody who gets a chance. If you do see the show live, streamed on Twitch on a Monday or Thursday at 10 a.m., by all means, do follow the channel and speak up in the chat while you're there. And hey, you know what? We're going to take a hiatus, a summer break, after the 15th, so we've got 3 more shows. 2 more Thursdays, 1 more Monday. The 15th is a Thursday, so it works out that there are 2 more Thursday shows, 2 more weeks, plus today, 3 more shows after today. Anywho, by all means, do follow the channel and chime in on the chat. I also want to ask, let's get rid of that. And I want to say, if you don't get a chance to catch a stream, you can always catch up with this on YouTube. We load up the shows after they have streamed, usually within the hour. If you do catch up with it on YouTube, by all means, subscribe to the channel and click on the little bell by the subscribe button to get notifications of updates, new episodes being uploaded. Please do give a thumbs up to any episodes you watch and or enjoy. And feel free to comment on episodes if you've got some tips on making the show a little better or some questions about various things covered in the show. You want to just make a comment on whatever it was we were looking at, such as the DM's Adventure Log. Feel free to do so. We appreciate it very much. And thank you for being a viewer. So once again, thanks to everybody. I appreciate it very much. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.